Last week, in my Friday night live session, I gave away these little scissors. These are the April scissors with a little bloom on them because we are ready for spring. And the scissors open and close are just a little embellishment. Now, I am also going to give away some scissors that I made for January. This is for April. This will be for January. I'm going to show you how I make these in this video, but by the time you see this video, these will have already been all given away. But I thought that they were so fun to make. They're a little house on kind of like a black handled with blue flower scissors. And what's so fun about this, it has a little pink door that opens and closes. And this is the back. I will put my information on the back of it. So to make the little house scissors, what you will need is some sort of a cutting tool. I cut a page of 12-inch scrapbook paper into 1-inch strips that looks like this. You will need some scrapbook paper. I'm using 12 by 12. This is just for example, but I will be using this patterned paper because it kind of looks like snowflakes, and for January there's a lot of snow, so I thought they would make a nice base for the house. I'm using Tim Holtz mirror metallic paper. It's both in gold and silver. For these scissors, I am using the silver because I think it coordinates the best. But some type of mirrored paper, you do not need mirrored paper. You can use any type of paper, anything you want. You might want to use pattern paper for the blades. This will be cut for the blades. Miscellaneous tools, markers and pens, bone folder, ruler, scissors. In this case, Penelope is joining me because I'm using this big fat needle. A paper trimmer, a cutting board, X-Acto knife, small brads. I like these little scrapbooking brads that have the very short shank. They seem to work the best for these smaller scissors. Tape or glue, whichever is your preference. Now on these, I already have the scissor handles cut out. I did this before I decided to make this video. So I used a piece of 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. I cut some patterns out of, actually I think this was from the back of a Kleenex box, of the handles of the scissors. And I use these over and over and over again. I just set them down, trace around the handles. I make enough of them to make all the scissors that I want to make. You can see where I've traced around here. And then I cut the handles out with a scissor and use my X-Acto knife to cut out the centers. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have an electric die cutter, you could put this pattern in a die cutter and let the die cutter cut them. That would be really convenient, but I do all this by hand. So here are all my scissors handles. I put them in a little baggie to keep them organized while I'm working on them. I'm just going to work on these two in this video. The first thing that I do is cut a 1-inch strip of scrapbook paper. Now this is not cardstock. This is not a thin scrapbook paper, but it's not a heavy one either. And this happens to be double-sided, which I really like. And I used the paper trimmer to cut this with. Thank you to Peg Robinson, who gifted me with this paper trimmer, quite unexpectedly, but she was right. I need this. Approximately 1 inch. It doesn't have to be exact. So I can get several little houses out of this. Then I take this 1 inch strip and cut it into 1 inch squares. I'll just do a couple here. Very easy. Now, you can use a ruler, or if you have an angle punch, I just use scissors. I'm just going to trim some angled corners for the roof line. And I basically just do this by hand. Now you can use either side of this paper. They both would work. I like it because it looks like snow, or snow over here, front and back. And while I'm trimming the roof line, I just open a little door. And you want to make your little door short because you are going to be putting a brad up along the roof line. So I make it pretty short. This will be my door that opens and closes. And I just bend it back with my hands. Here again, it doesn't have to be perfect unless you're a perfectionist. You can score it if you want. I have a piece of scratch paper that I use when I'm using my markers on these. I'm going to give it a pink door. I like the contrast here. And I just color the door pink. Then I take let's zoom in a little at this point. I have a Sharpie pen that has permanent ink in it. And I just draw a little roof line. And since it's January, I put some icicles off of the roof line. And let's give it some windows. Nothing fancy, just fun. Now you could draw a chimney on here if you wanted to, or put a little piece of scrap paper. I'm going to make my chimney pink just to coordinate with the door. Now you could outline the house in pink. I did not outline the house here. I'm okay with that the way it is. Look, I did not put a pink chimney on there either. Let's put a pink chimney on it. So there's my house. Here are my scissor handles. Now the next thing that you'll want to do is cut a 5/8 inch strip. This is 5/8 of an inch in width. And I cut it out of, this is 8x8 Tim Holtz metallic mirror paper. It's a metallic paper. And then after I cut 5/8 inch strip, I cut it in half. This is the other half of this blade. If you ask me, this is the most difficult part of this project, because what you want to do is, I always turn my little strip of paper, which will be my scissors blade, I always kind of angle it so that I can get to it, and I use my straight edge. Now you could cut this with the scissors. It's not easy. I like to use my X-Acto knife to cut this with, and sometimes this paper will slip around on you. I have put tape on it, but even my washi tape kind of pulls up at this, so I kind of quit doing that. I get my ruler and I don't put it from corner to corner. I kind of come just a bit off of the corner on each side, on the top left and the lower bottom right. You have to kind of fuss with this. And you need to hold it tight so this paper doesn't slip, and you need a sharp blade. My blade is getting dull. I need to change the blade. Then I'm just going to make a mark, and then I'm going to come back in a little bit deeper with it. And I'm going to do that since my blade is not really sharp. I just kind of keep cutting this until it's cut apart. And there are my scissor blades. These came out fairly nice. Kind of surprised me. So let's move this so that you can see better what I'm doing against the white. So here are the blades, and here are the handles. So you want to attach the handles to the blades. Now, because it's 5/8 of an inch, and depending on whatever you have here for a pattern, I find that this is not entirely 5/8 of an inch across, so I kind of figure out here where placing this is going to work the best. I'll be trimming this part here off. So what I do is I put double-sided tape. I have a really thin 1/4 inch width of double-sided tape, and this is stronger than what you might imagine. But if you don't have a strong double-sided tape, glue, Elmer's glue will work on this too. Except I like the tape because the Elmer's glue, I'm always having to wait for it to dry. So put that on each of the blades. I don't put it on the mirror part because I don't know exactly where I'm going to place this until I start fiddling with it. Remove the backing paper. Then you'll want to place these on the scissors. Now you'll see that you have a straight edge and an angled edge on each one of these. And I really don't pay too much attention to where they go. In this case, I have both straight edges on the inside. But to be honest with you, that's not a rule. It just seems to work every now and then. I attach the scissors blade to the scissors handle, and then I come in and I snip away this excess. Now this all depends on your pattern. You might have a different pattern where you don't have to do this. It really just kind of depends on how you work. Now can you see how thin this is compared to how thick my blade is? So this is going to come down quite a ways. Right in there. So I'm going to be trimming this excess off here. There we go. I have my two scissors handles. Now in this case, I'm going to put this scissors handle on the top. Now at this point, I want to either punch or bore a little hole in the blades and in the little house so that I can put the brad through it. Now I have the crocodile punch, which has the smaller hole punch, but I don't like it because I can't really see where I'm getting the hole centered in here. So I do use I call this my pokey tool. Anything with a sharp pointed edge. And I also use a really sharp and long craft needle. And I kind of try to get this in the center as much as possible. If it's off center a little, it will be off center a little. And at first I just kind of bore a hole into this, and then I work the tool through the paper. Now this is where a paper punch with a tiny punch would work good, but sometimes those punches don't allow you to see where you're going. And that's why I like the needle, because I can see exactly where I'm putting that little hole where my brad is going to go. Sometimes if you get it started on the front, turn it over and you can open up the back a little bit more too. You just want large enough for your brad to go through. Now I do the handles separate from the house, just so I can see where I'm putting things. I like to see where I'm going. In fact, at this point I can do each one of these separately. There, I got a nice piece in there. Now, you want to kind of think about where you're going to put whatever decorative element you're going to put on there. I have this little door that opens, so when it opens, I kind of want it to see the back of the scissors. So I think I'm going to put my brad in on this house. Each house will be a little bit different depending on the placement. I'm just going to put it right in here. So let's get a brad out of here. I only need one. Of course, I always get two. Not ready for this one yet. Let's see if I can put it back in without spilling these. There we go. So put your brad in through the house, through the top scissors blade, now you can trim this untaped portion off if you want, or you can tack it down with glue. Right now I'm just going to leave it. And the brad will help hold your scissors together too. Once you get this brad in here, everything gets a lot stronger. And then through the bottom one. Get everything aligned. I like to close up my scissors while I'm doing this, and then open up the shanks of the brad. I need to get this up to my face. There. So open up the shanks of your brad and bend them back. I like to have them angled straight as much as possible, but they will turn. They will turn in here. And then sometimes I take my bone folder and just kind of press them down, tighten them up a little. Now I am going to trim this off because it's peeking through. Just kind of fuss with it. Just trim off that blade there. And I also... Now you can leave these the way they are, sharp, but I don't like how it begins to curve there. And I have found that I really like it a lot more if I just kind of angle cut the blades there, and that makes them nice and sturdy. So there's my little house scissors. Now on this one, I took my marker and went around the edge on the outside. I'm not sure about that, if I'll do that on all of them. If you do the back, it's probably best to do it before you attach everything. I'll go back and draw outlines around here. I do like the outline on the back. And then I leave this part white so that I can sign it and date it, because I'll be giving them away. Let's go ahead and mark around the back here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes when it's not perfect, it just has a certain handmade quality to it that makes it charming. There we go. I wanted to show you the finished pieces. On the little houses, I went ahead and used my fine line paint applicator and added some icicles and snow because it's January. But yeah, the little scissors open and close. I'm really happy with how they came out. I hope to make little scissors for each month of 2018. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next page.